Gentlemen of the craft, welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of Gameology. I'm your host, Neo K. Marcellus. Yeah, that's checkmate. Now, a lot of men has a tendency to linger between two kinds of existence. First is the existence that they live out on an everyday basis. And then second is the unlived existence that hides and lurks deep within them. And standing between the two is competition. So, from a street perspective, if a man is to be street savvy, which is a requirement in order for a man to be a thorough chess player and a practicing gameologist, then comprehending of this playbook surrounding competition is a must. Because when a man maneuvers across the chessboard of life without this understanding of this playbook, the competition will bite and eat away at him at every turn and swallow him whole if he stops and stands still. As I have said several times before on several other podcasts on the Chronicles of Gameology episodes, conflict, contradiction, and competition are realities that one is interacting with on a everyday basis. So on this episode of the Chronicles of Gameology, I'm going to dive into how the lack of understanding of the push and tug, which directs the concept of competition, is mentally hindering and impeding a lot of men. Particularly competition surrounding the hustle and bustle that takes place within the male and female relationship dynamic. But first, let me provide a straight, no chaser perspective on how competition is a natural and customary occurrence upon this chessboard we call life. Undoubtedly, you are already familiar with and up to speed on the concept referred to as Newton's first law of motion, that states that an object at rest stays at rest and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acting upon by an interfering force. This highlights the resistance, the push and tug that takes place among everyday forces of nature that trickles down to our social, economic, and political and relationship dynamics that you and I participate in and contend with on a 24/7 or a day-by-day basis. These are the ingredients making up competition, as it is understood from a factual perspective. Now, the philosophy known as the concept of game and the unwritten playbook containing the methods and procedures of the push and tug of competition views competing or competition in one of three ways. But for this episode, I'm going to focus on one in particular, which is the zero-sum scenario. Now, check out this image I'm currently showing you. Competition that falls up under this classification, the zero-sum scenario, can be understood as a situation where the come up made by one party is reflected as a loss of a big fat zero in the adjacent party participating in the interaction agreed upon by both parties. In other words, let's say two friends illustrated by the letters A and B on this image gets involved and places a little wager on a college football game. If A wins, then B loses. And if B wins, then A loses. Therefore, when total profits and total losses ends up as they are in a transaction between two or more individuals, then these total profits and total losses are added up or subtracted and the outcome becomes zero. Then this, my comrades, is called a zero-sum scenario. Now, here momentarily, I will divulge how this zero-sum scenario plays out in the relationship dynamics taking place between men in women, especially how the lack of understanding of this unwritten playbook containing the methods and tactics making up the push and tug within this natural phenomenon known as competition. Within the body of knowledge of the catching hand, there are 4 levels making up the various tiers of efficiency that speaks to how efficient a man has become at utilizing the skill sets making up the concept referred to as one's catching hand. I did an entire show breaking down this concept and those levels. Here's the link. Check it out once you get finished viewing this episode. But within the philosophy of the catching hand, the top 2 levels, which is level 3 and level 4, must have a thorough understanding of this unwritten playbook containing the methods and procedures of this push and tug governing the back and forth that takes place within this natural phenomenon known as competition. Although in the grand scheme of things surrounding the philosophy of gameology, a practitioner of this craft gotta be competent at playing the lighter shade and the darker shade of the chessboard. The darker shade of the chessboard has to do with strategies and tactics surrounding the art of cooperation. And the lighter shade of the chessboard represents, of course, the strategies and tactics surrounding the art of competition. As this image is now indicating, at times there is a tug of war between which one to use in any given scenario or situation. Because upon the chessboard of life, a lot of times we cannot direct the winds of change, but we always have the option to stop and drop anchor and implement a different course of action. Reasoning from the fact that I just stated, this unwritten playbook that contains the know-how of this push and tug I've been mentioning. This push and tug is all about understanding the different degrees of control when you are in the thick of it when engaging with someone or several individuals when it comes to competition. Now, peep game. When you are in the thick of it when it comes to competing with individuals or several individuals, the possibilities are wide open. Initially, meaning you and the individual or individuals you are competing with have options that are equally the same. But as the competition heats up and gets hot and more engaging, one side of this engagement, their options begin to expand. And this is the pushing factor of the equation of this push and tug. While on the other end of the spectrum, the individual or individuals you are competing with, their options begins to contract. This is the tugging side of the push and tug. Whoever drives this dynamic to their favor will have the advantage when it comes to the art of competition. With that said, let me now divulge how a lack of understanding surrounding a man not having any insight into this unwritten playbook, which contains the knowledge of the push and tug I just got through describing, and exactly why it works against him when he engages into the male and female relationship dynamic. And to continue what I was mentioning a moment ago in regards to the top 2 levels of the philosophy of one's catching hand, on level 3 and level 4 of this philosophy, it is a requirement to have a workable understanding into the art of competition. Because to play on those 2 levels, level 3 and level 4, one must possess a functional street IQ. And having a functional street IQ is when a man has tapped into his instinctual power. Unbeknownst to a lot of men is the fact that when a man is getting intimate and getting at the ladies, there is a organic and a natural instinctual flow that takes place on 4 levels. Check out this fresh image that I'm now showing you. Being street savvy is being aware of these four levels and how to influence them. But regardless if a man is aware of these four levels or not, this flow, it happens anytime a man and a woman engages and gets intimate. In this regard, competition and the combination of a man's lack of street savviness puts him on the losing end of a zero-sum scenario, because when he is devoid in any understanding and comprehension of his instinctual power, then he is socially awkward more times than not when interacting with females in this male and female dynamic consistently taking place upon this chessboard we call life. This instinctual flow that I'm speaking of now has to do with how devotional a female is when it comes to men. At each stage of these levels, a woman's devotional commitment gets stronger as this flow moves to this fourth level. And of course, this first level is the most superficial as it relates to a woman being devoted to a man. And what I want to bring your undivided attention to is this second level, which is one's status. But when it comes to status, from a gameologist perspective, it has nothing to do with a man being high value or any of that type of nonsense. Status from a gameology and a factual point of view has to do with the social biological reality, in the sense that women crave stability and steadfastness of a highly qualified man. But since security and support can be sustained on her own because of our modern society, then this biological reality extends itself to encompass her intellectual and her overall emotional sentiment that a capable man provides for a woman when he is well equipped and well seasoned. So when a man interacts with a woman, as for this second level, his status, he is undermined and removed from the equation like a chess piece that has been captured by an opposing player. But his status, his chess piece, is removed because of his posturing style of verbiage, his manner of expressing, if you will, that a lot of men is prone to use because of a lack of understanding of competition and a lack of possessing any type of street savviness about them. Remember, the primary and foremost way that these four levels of instinctual flow are influenced is through what a woman hears and how it sheds light on the reality she is contending with. So, when a man has this sort of disposition or posturing style, which produces this prickly kind of verbiage, his manner of communicating, he makes social interacting awkward and cumbersome. Case in point, I had this individual tell me recently about this blunder he made when he and this chick he met went back to her place. But when they arrived, they got into a deep conversation on some social issues, and it turned into a heated debate, especially when he started to lob some heavy statistical data in her direction. Afterwards, as you can imagine, the camaraderie between the two of them was shattered, and what remained was this icy kind of awkwardness. So basically, he slowly got up and bounced as a consequence of being argumentative when interchanging ideas and viewpoints when conversing and chit-chatting with the ladies. These kind of socially awkward individuals makes it about winning rather than socializing. And when I gave him some insight as to what happened based upon what he told me, I advised him that basically what he gave her is what is called a false dilemma, which is when you give someone only two choices, yet in all actuality, other choices and other options do exist. This sort of posturing style of verbiage is usually categorized by a man using a either this or a either that type of language, and to lighten his mood, because to find out this sort of thing has happened several times before. So I shot him this video clip from Star Wars where Obi-Wan Kenobi admonishes an emerging Darth Vader, which was Anakin Skywalker, on using the same type of verbiage I just got through describing, and that this guy I'm speaking of had fell victim to as well.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
These sort of men who falls up under this posturing and prickly style of communicating are dumped into the second category of this quote made by Plato, where he so eloquently stated, "Wise men communicates because they have something to say, but foolish ones, they communicate because they have to say something." Swinging back to those four levels involving the philosophy of the catching hand, but level 1 and level 2 on this 4-tier configuration, men who falls up under these two levels are referred to from a gameologist perspective as squares. And one of the main reasons why was just revealed in that clip you just got through watching, when Obi-Wan Kenobi said, and I'm paraphrasing, "Wise men do not converse in absolutes." If you to go back and check out other episodes of the Chronicles of Gameology, this image that I'm now currently showing you, notice that one of the main constructs that solidifies a man being square is that he deals in absolutes. That's why it is so crucial for a man to be in the know when it comes to competition and his unwritten playbook that contains the tactics of the push and tug, because when he doesn't, he falls prey to a zero-sum scenario. In conclusion, one critical and indispensable point that needs to be understood about competition when it is applied to the male and female relationship dynamic, and that is, competition is a multiplayer collaboration endeavor. So when a man is devoid of this understanding about the nature of competition and its unwritten playbook, he has a overly tendency to traffic in absolutes and exhibit this posturing, prickly style of engaging with the ladies, and inadvertently gets himself and his options totally removed from the chessboard. And to hammer home what I have said many times before, and that is, I have just scratched the surface when it comes to this unwritten playbook and divulging its contents and the knowledge of competition from a street savviness point of view. Now, that's checkmate. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next episode.